Okay, we're back, man. It's JFAQ number 5 on Facebook, and I am Unrested. Let's just get started with Zoran asks, what is your experience with Japanese futons? My very first apartment had a futon. Do you use one now? No, I do not anymore. I use a king-size bed, which is actually a queen size in America. Would you be willing to be a middleman between Canada and Japan to purchase a good futon or two? I've seen them on Rakuten.com. I'm 6'2", and finding one can be very hard. Yeah, if you're like 2 meters or taller, finding a futon that's gonna fit your size is, I'm pretty sure, very difficult. I'm not saying it's impossible, because there are people in Japan who are 2 meters or more, but they are the exception, and I mean the exception. On average, probably your average male is about 5'7", probably a little bit shorter than that. Adrian says, I know you've talked a lot about tattoos and piercings in relation to teaching before in your videos. I was wondering if facial piercings like lip rings or nose rings, what is the policy on them? You would have to take them out if you're going to teach in Japan. But if you're teaching kindergarten, I've seen many people have those piercings and they're okay. I've seen at least nose piercings. Even now I have a friend who owns a school, and he hires people. One guy has a tattoo on his neck and one guy has a nose piercing. So I don't know exactly why this is. I guess because kindergartners don't really understand that. I should say not kindergartners, but kids from age 5 and lower usually don't have a big qualm with anything being in your face and skin, so they don't really care too much, maybe. But I've found it's much easier for those levels. Youchien or Hoikuen. Rai asks, did you ever play Shenmue? Yes, Shenmue is awesome. Actually, Shenmue is one of my all-time favorite games. I played 1 and 2, and I'm still waiting for a 3. Or Yakuza, Ryoga. Sorry, he wrote the Japanese one right next to it, and I wasn't ready to say that. Yakuza, which was in Japan here, it was called Ryuga Gotoku, the movement of the dragon, or the way of the dragon. Yes, I've got 1 through 4. I've got them in Japanese and I've got them in English, and I prefer to play them with the Japanese speaking. I know there's one with like English dub, and it sounds horrible. It doesn't work out right. Have you played those? Yeah, I played all of them. I haven't played number 5 yet, and I haven't played like there's like Yakuza of the Dead or something like that. I haven't played that one. If so, what is your impression of these games? You know, I really like them, and I think they mimic the areas that they represent pretty well. What is it like? I think the one's Ikebukuro, and the other one is set in Osaka, which definitely works out well. And the other one's set in Okinawa, down near Naha, which is awesome. It was really Natsukashi to play that part, the Okinawa one, because that's actually where I went for my honeymoon. But this time I was playing as a mafia member there, so it was pretty interesting. What is my impression of the games? I think they're awesome games. My only qualm is, number 1, I think you have to do like random fights too much. That's a little bit annoying. And number 2, I kind of don't like the way that they block off areas of the game, like parking a taxi in front of a street that you just can't walk over or jump over or open the door is always lame to me. Like, just put a wall there or something. You're not copying the exact structure of the city, so put a building that's not there. Jason asks, are there any differences between the internet service providers in Japan and internet? Yeah, internet service providers here give you way higher speed. Like, they constantly try to sell me their highest speed internet here, but it's so much, even the lowest speed internet here is so much higher than the highest speed in America that there's no point in me ever buying that. It's awesome. If you want to play online games, if you want to download a bunch of stuff, the internet speed here is insane. Come here sometime and ping it, and you will be blown away. Rise asks, okay, if you had only 1 week in Osaka, what would be your key things to see? I'd go see Nara, Himeji, which is not really Osaka, but it's close. I'd go see Osaka-jo. I'd go see Shinsaibashi, Amemura, Dotonbori. If you still had energy left after seeing all that, maybe go to I don't know. Those are good places. I gave you enough. That's like 4 or 5 days. If you can make it to all those places, you've got a heck of a set of walking feet on you. Jason asks, how hard is it to get a permanent English teaching job after something like JET? It's not very hard at all. I don't know if I would call it permanent though. Like you constantly would have to get only 1-year contracts. No one gives you like a lifetime contract. Would it be worth doing the Masters in Education TEFL if I wanted to continue to get better pay? No. No. Your pay will be the same even if you had a PhD. So no point. Zombo asks, I had written a few questions, but it looks like she missed the cutoff time for one of the JFAQ Facebooks, so she's writing them again. Number 1, have you ever been to Miyajima Island? No, I have not. If not, do you have any desire to do so? Yes, I would love to go visit the smaller islands. They're amazing and beautiful, and some of them have incredible sights to see, and one of them, I forget the name of this one island, but they don't have any cars there. You have to ride ox around the island, and I think that's freaking awesome. This is my only favorite place to visit while I visited Japan. This is one of my favorite places that I visited while I was in Japan. Okay, that makes sense. Such a unique experience interacting with all the deer. I did talk about this one. I answered this one before. Your profile says your home time was Philadelphia. Mine is actually town of Lansdale, about 30 minutes outside. Whereabouts in Philly were you from? I was actually born in Philadelphia, in a hospital in Philadelphia, but guess what? I grew up in Lancaster. Do you know that sleepy town? Number 3, as a creature/horror artist, I absolutely love looking at other people's styles and works. I know you mentioned you have an art book, but do you have any sort of personal website to showcase your portfolio? I have kind of a half portfolio on DeviantArt under the name Unrested. You guys can check it out, but honestly, it doesn't have all my stuff. I have a more recent one on Google Plus under Scott Ackerman. I would much suggest that one because it's up to date. Jarrett asks, I've watched a little more than 100 of your 200 plus videos, so hopefully my question hasn't been asked before. Are you allowed to bring things like video game consoles, movies from your own country? I think that would be fine. You know, the biggest thing that they crack down on is they just don't want you to bring like fruit or raw vegetables or raw fruit or like anything that can carry over like bugs or fungus or something like that. That's what they would freak out about. Maybe also if you have high-level meds, like you don't want to bring over like high-level painkillers or something like that, because that's kind of makes you look a little bit suspicious coming over here. Video games, I don't think they would have any problem with that. I don't see why that would be a problem. The only thing I would worry about is the safety of your systems. I would say if you can possibly carry them on with you, that would be better. Alexandria asks, what type of school would you enroll your children? Oh, I know this is probably like a Apple correction mistake. This happens all the time to me too. She's trying to say, what type of school will you enroll your children in? A local Japanese or international school? Right now I have my kids in a Japanese nursery school. What side of the family would you want them to recognize themselves with? As being American or Japanese? Can't they be American Japanese? I mean, I recognize them as both. Even in Japan, they're called hafu. Like in Japanese, literally they're called hafu, which means they're half something else and half Japanese. So I consider them half of each. I don't recognize them as Japanese. I don't recognize them as American. I recognize them as both. Uh-oh, this person's name, C-S-I-B-I. How do I say that? Shijibi? Kizbi? How do Japanese approach hunting and freshwater fishing? Okay. As a foreigner, do you have to take a Japanese test for hunting fishing license? Is a big game bow hunting legal? Also, how big is outdoor subculture in Japan? Okay. You know, I've only lived in the city here. I've been living in like the most downtown urban area of Osaka for 6 years, so I'm not any kind of expert on this. Here's what I know. You can own a shotgun in Japan. You have to apply for a license, you have to take some tests, and you can't have any kind of criminal record. If you own your shotgun for 12 years with no criminal problems, no any kind of police run-ins, nothing bad connected to you owning a gun, you can finally get a pistol. And those are only for hunting. You can't use them for anything else than that. I don't know about this other stuff about do you need a license to fish and hunt. Just because I've never had the chance. I would love to. It'd be really fun, but I don't live anywhere close to the countryside. So if anybody lives in a really suburban or rural area that has access to that, please let this person know. Good question. Ben asks, Leading up to Perfume, that's a band, in case you guys don't know, very cute members. Perfume's second world tour around Europe, I've noticed they're having more interviews with magazines, and in their latest interview, Achan quotes, "I went to London last year and the sandwiches were amazing. The ones in Japan are terrible." They are terrible. Wow, Achan, you're cool. Is this just a personal opinion, or sandwiches are crap in Japan? Like, they have like literally no meat in them and no lettuce and just like the minimum possible. Like literally, like if they could cut it any slicer, like if they could slice it any thinner, it would just be like, I mean, invisible. They cut their meat so thin here and put so little on a sandwich. I mean, they have sandwiches here, but I don't know if I would really even call them sandwiches. Megan asks, I really love your channel. It's really informative. I know of the existence of cat cafes, though are super rare. You can sit and drink tea while petting cats. I was curious because I thought this was unusual considering how cleanliness seems to be important. I was wondering how most people regard these kind of places. Also, have you ever been to one? I've never been to one of those. They're not really that common. I mean, I'm sure they've been shown on a lot of like, whoa, Japan's taboo craziness type shows, but they're like few and far between. Like, I can't even think of one anywhere close to me here in the most urban part of Osaka. And Tokyo, they probably have them a little bit more, but they're probably super hard to find. I'd also like to ask in general how people think of pets and animals in Japan. People love to have pets, but sadly, once they get sick of them, they can just give them to the police for incineration, and that happens quite a bit. So that, I don't know how I feel about that. That's not too cool. I've heard, oh, sorry, Ramsey asks, I've heard in a Google Hangout that included Victor and Hiko Simon, Tokyo Sam, and Chillin and Kansai, that in some prefectures you can vote if you hold permanent resident status. Is that the case in Osaka? I did not know that. Are you serious? I do not know if that is the case in Osaka, but I'm going to have to research that. Mikai asks, can you talk about Japan's wildlife? Are snakes and spiders a big problem? Not unless you live in like really rural side area, and even then it's not a big problem. Are there any animals that are worrisome? The Japanese wasp, from what I heard, is really brutal. Apparently, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, entomologists out there, it has a bite that exudes poison that is toxic and can literally melt a person's skin. Now, I'm not saying like melt huge chunks of skin off of you like some kind of horror movie, but like tiny, tiny, tiny bits. And apparently they're extremely painful. So I guess that's something to avoid if you see a Japanese wasp. Stay away, they're huge, they're scary. Rai says, he answered this in a previous video. Oh, okay, you're talking. Daniel Lord says, when you were in your teens, what was the funnest thing that you liked doing in your pastime? Drawing? Rai says, were you at any point in time straight edge? No, can't say I was. Another question, what is your opinion on Perfume? Perfume, like people wearing Perfume, or the band Perfume? I think Perfume is, they're a cute band. Their music's like so-so, but it's pretty obvious every single song is like auto-tuned, so I don't know if there's a lot of talent going on there. What is graduate school like in Japan? You know who that would be good to ask? Someone who's actually gone to graduate school in Japan, because I haven't. Daniel, first off, I want to say I love your videos. Thank you, Daniel. What was it like when you first experienced an asshole gaijin in Japan? I mean, when I came here with Nova, I met a lot of them because I had like 600 teachers at where I worked, and they were all gaijin, and there were a lot of idiots in there. What was the first thing that came to mind? The first thing that came to mind was shut up. And don't complain about how it's not like America because it's Japan, or don't complain that it's not like Canada, or every country that speaks English has some people that complain. It's not just Americans. Australians, you're just as guilty. So are New Zealanders, definitely. And Canada and UK, you guys are all guilty of that. I am too. There's stuff I've complained about at the beginning that I've gotten used to. Liam asks, how is the art scene in Japan? It's good. Art is highly respected here. Have you met any other people that work as artists? Yes, I have. I've met quite a few. I've gone to quite a few art shows. I was thinking about trying to get an apprenticeship somewhere in Japan after college. I'm a major in computer science and art. What do you think of the art scene there as a whole? You could try to get an apprenticeship, but it probably wouldn't be paid, so I don't know how you would survive. You'd have to have a lot of money saved up. What do you think about sexualization of children in Japan? I think it's horrible, and I obviously disapprove because I have children of my own and I would never ever put them through such a situation. Brianna, are you interested in getting the PS4? Yes. Do you like Kingdom of Hearts or Final Fantasy? Man, Final Fantasy 13 sucked balls. That was the most boring piece of crap game ever. You can defend it as much as you want if you're a huge hardcore fanboy of that stuff, but man, I hated that game. Kingdom Hearts, man, I know that game is cool, and I know there's a lot in it, and there's huge storylines and everything, but man, I cannot get into that. Like, I grew up in Florida next to Disney, and I went there a bunch of times, and I know the Disney characters, and like having this deep story behind them, connecting them to like some kind of like, you know, Yu-Gi-Oh looking guy, I just can't get into that, man. It's weird. Nick says, is street fashion generally more conservative or eccentric? It's a little more eccentric for the most part until you get out into like rural parts, and then it's pretty conservative. Eric says, hey Scott, I was wondering, what does the water taste like in Japan? Does it have a bad taste or smell? No, it tastes great. I can't really complain about it at all, but, you know, perhaps my senses are dulled. I don't know. For the most part, I find it's quite good. Albino says, hey Scott, I was wondering, how is long hair typical death metal, black metal length on men generally viewed there? It's okay. It's not too crazy here. People like to have decent and crazy haircuts. I know it's almost never seen at the workplace. Yeah, probably like if you want to be a salary man, you can't do that. But how is it in everyday life? Like, you could probably still work in ALT or a kindergarten job. You'd probably just have to put it up in a ponytail. They wouldn't really freak out about that. Rise says... Rise. Oh, in this he says, it's pronounced Reese. And this is like the third time he's asked a question. Thanks, Reese. How did you make friends and socialize with other people? What was it like? What was your Japanese like? My Japanese was horrible when I got here. I could barely talk. How did I socialize with people? I just hung out around areas of stuff that I was interested in. Like, I went down to Amemura because there was like kind of like a punk rock and metal scene around there. And I hung out with those people, and they were really nice, and I made friends, and I made skateboarding friends and skateboarded for a while. And now I'm an old man with a family. I don't really do that too much. I don't socialize too much. Ryan asks, when people introduce themselves in Japanese, how do you know that what their name is their first and last? How do you know what their name is their first and last? Okay, I know what you're trying to say. Did you also watch Shingeki no Kyojin? Yeah, I've watched Shingeki no Kyojin. I actually read the manga first, and then I watched the anime. For those of you who don't know, I think in English, what does that translate to? Attack on the Titan. It's really cool if you're into like kind of crazy battles. If you like I don't know, I liked Gantz, and some parts of this kind of reminded me of Gantz with like giant battles and stuff like that. How do you know what people's first and last name are? People say their full names sometimes, or other people who introduce them, they just say the last name first and the first name last, like is typical in Japan. I don't know if there was more to that question I didn't understand. Nina says, before you met your future wife in the bookstore, when you were dating, did you date various types of gaijin girls too, or only Japanese girls? I dated one gaijin girl when I first got here, in like the first couple of weeks, and then we went our separate ways. And then I dated a lot of Japanese girls. I did quite a few. I did okay for myself, but I'm not gonna brag because I'm a good guy. So Japanese girls, how common is it for the Japanese girls to make the first move? It's super uncommon. As opposed to the guy being assertive, you're going to have to make the first move. There's very rarely would a Japanese girl ever make the first move in Japan. Are Japanese women generally more assertive? Only with gaijin? No. Sandro asks, was there a moment when you thought you were not going to make it in Japan? I don't know if there was like a moment. There was like a couple of months. Like when I was here for 4 months, I really hit like a rough spot. You know, I had lost my job because the place went bankrupt. I had just started a new one. I hadn't met any girls or anything yet. I hadn't really had much of a chance. I had that one gaijin girlfriend I just talked about, but that ended really quick. We weren't really having anything deeper involved. And all my friends had gone back home because the company they worked for went bankrupt. So I was pretty much here on my own. It was trial by fire. I had to learn quite a bit. So that was a pretty hard time for me. And how did I pull through? Well, my goal had always been to live here a year. And I thought, well, you know what, I'm just going to make it to the end of this year, and we'll see how I feel after that. And I made it to there, and by that time I could finally start to speak some of the language. I started to make more friends because of that. I started to find more places to hang out, and I started to like really learn about Osaka and like all the different areas you can go to. So that was a big deal for me. That really kept me staying here and loving Osaka. Daniel says, hey Scott, I have been watching many different J-bloggers for years, and I'm shocked that I've never heard this question brought up. I'm wondering how credit rating transfers from Japan, or if it even transfers at all. It does not transfer. There is no credit rating in Japan. If you have a credit rating in America or Canada or wherever, your credit rating does not transfer. You have no credit rating here. My credit rating is very good for my age. I know you're not Canadian, so let me know based on the US experience. Well, you don't have to worry about any kind of credit, good or bad. There is no credit here. Al says, hello Scott, I recently read an article that compared the Japanese and Korean entertainment industries. They had some really good points. You don't hear much about Japan that much anymore. One of their points was that Japan is isolating itself again. For example, they were making music and video games only for Japanese people, and Korea is starting to market to the Western world. It also said that Japanese people also enjoy Korean entertainment more than theirs. What do you think about this? I would say that Korean entertainment is better for the whole world in general. Their movies are much better too. I mean, sorry Japan, I love you, but dude, K-pop is way better than J-pop. The people have more talent. They're even more gorgeous. Their movies have amazing acting, and I think, here's my honest opinion on this, and I have nothing to back this up. This is just like my super subjective opinion. Japanese people don't get a chance to express themselves in everyday life due to the way their culture works. That means they don't have a chance to express a lot of different emotions or a range of emotions. If you're never given a chance to do that, how do you ever learn how to act? So even the people who become actors have never had a chance to act out the feelings that they need to show in a movie. Whereas in Korea, it's okay to express strong anger, strong disappointment, strong sadness, or extreme happiness. And they become better actors because of this. I would say that's why America has some really great actors, is because almost anything goes in America. I think this is what really isolates Japan, is their level of talent in acting, and it's just piss poor. I can't get around that. I mean, I'd be lying if I said Japanese people were amazing actors. They're not. Their movies are really pretty crap, and even their big budget movies are pretty bad. The highest budget movie ever in Japan so far to date is Battleship Yamato. And if you've watched that, I mean, it is a boring-ass movie. It's sci-fi, which you would think would blow you away. It comes from an awesome manga, which was really good. Even a good anime series. But the movie is boring as hell. And who did they use to star in it but from some guy from SMAP? Come on. So, I think there's a lot of things going wrong for Japanese movies in general. J-pop's okay, it's not that bad. I'd say some of their stuff markets to around the world. Look at Kyari Pamu Pamu, look at Maximum the Hormone, they're popular around the world. Daniel says, what are your favorite Yakuza movies? Obviously I like the Outrage movies. He says, I've only seen Outrage and I enjoyed it. I haven't watched many others than that either myself. I mean, they're kind of all the same. I'm not a big gangster fan film. Heidegger asks, what does the song you posted is 1F your faves? What? What does it talk about? It's kind of weird. Okay, I guess he's trying to ask, what does that song talk about? I mean, I don't really know. I haven't really read the lyrics. From what I can understand from what they're singing about, they're just talking about, like, the chemical connection between someone they love. I'm a ceramic artist, a potter and a sculptor, and in the fitness industry. Number one, have you seen ceramic art represented there? Yes. If so, what area or prefecture? Well, here in Osaka. Number two, how is the fitness industry? It's starting to become more popular here in Japan. Specifically, is there a market for personal trainers? Yes and no. I have seen Japanese personal trainers here. I have yet to see a Gaijin personal trainer. Matthew says, is the self-defense force the same as the U.S. National Guard? No, it is not. You need to research what a defense force is. It's not a military at all. It's a defense force. D. Hayate asks, hey Scott, my question is in regards to the education system in Japan. What are the differences between Japanese schooling as the world as there would be private schools, homeschooling, or even Waldorf type schooling, as in Rudolf Steiner in Japan. I do not know what any of that is. What is it like over there for people who don't want to send their kids through the system? You can go to private school. I haven't heard of anybody doing homeschooling. I don't know if that is approved here in Japan. If it is, if you know about that, please let me know, because I've never heard of anybody being homeschooled in Japan. Private school is ultra expensive here. I mean, it's probably even more than like American college. It's crazy expensive, but the education is much, much better. Public school, you really would have to search for a decent public school, as the actual educational services given by public schools these days are on the decline. They're pretty crap. Hunter asks, what do you use to edit your videos? I use iMovies, that's it. Have you ever been in any physical fights in Japan? Nah, no one ever steps to me here. 3, what has been the best moment for you in Japan? Probably the birth of both my sons. I can't say one son was better than the other to have. Have you ever seen any big fights or riots? I've seen fights, like but really small ones, just like 2 people. One time I saw like some Yankees beating up each other in the mall. That was kind of crazy. Do you enjoy answering all the questions that you have in your videos? No, some I hate, like when people ask if they can become a doctor here, because it means they didn't research anything. What type of camcorder do you use? Actually, I have a bunch. I have a bunch of different types. Some viewers have even sent me, which is cool. Right now I am using the Canon IXI 9 megapixel. What else? Number 7, what's the weirdest, coolest dream you ever had in Japanese? God, I can't really remember. They're always so... Oh, okay. I remember one really weird one. I had one after the Fukushima earthquake, that there was an earthquake at my house, and that my wife left me with both of the kids and then rode off on a bike to go get help. And it was like super scary, because I was just like, why did you go right off on a bike while I have to take care of the 2 kids? This is scary. Say It Ain't So Joe says, the song was pretty cool. I attached a song to this statement, so this status update, and that's why people are talking about this. I like the dubstep part the most. The video was cool. My favorite J group... Okay, do you have a question here? Okay, no question. Jared asks, question, I want to know, how did it feel to teach at your first school as an ALT in Japan? It was very interesting, and it felt like way easier than being at a Youchien. Ryan says, what's the teacher-student relationship like at a Japanese school? Like a Japanese public school? It's kind of an awkward situation, I'll be honest. And sometimes you can really make great friends, but sometimes it can really be awkward. Can the teachers be friends, or is it more strictly business? Sometimes you can make some really great friends. Is there a metal/emo core scene in Japan? Why does people constantly ask about this? I mean, yeah, there's not like one type of music not listened to in Japan. Every type is listened to. Andrew asks, should I apply to Japanese jobs while overseas that don't cover health insurance? What do you mean that don't cover health insurance? Like, if you work a Japanese job, you have national health insurance here. It covers everything. Is there a way to buy your own health insurance in a cheap fashion if I do? You can get international health insurance if you really want a private insurance on top of your national health insurance, but if you work for a Japanese company, they have to cover you if you're full-time. Nina asks, in the States, we have a lot of major chain craft stores. How common are craft stores? They're very common. Kawashi is the most biggest, and Tokyo Hands is the other one. Dennis asks, you wrote in Facebook information that you speak German. How fluent are you? I'm not very fluent at all. It's pretty bad. How many days do you work when you're teaching, and do they get a summer break? Like, I don't teach anymore. And final one, Melissa, are you still into Pokemon? I like Pokemon. Do you plan on getting Pokemon Y or X? I'll probably buy both. Have you ever visited Tokyo Disneyland? No. If you come from Florida, there's no point. Or Universal Studios. I have gone to that one. It sucks compared to the Florida one. Do you think translators for big companies make more money than any other English-related job in Japan? No. Thanks for answering questions. That's it. That's everything, guys. Until next time, I'm Unrested. This was another Facebook JFAQ.